God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. This is probably the most disturbing sentence ever spoken by a philosopher. And in the next 20 minutes, you will discover that it means absolutely nothing of what you imagine. In the last video, we explored Spinoza's God, a God who is not above nature, but who is nature itself, an impersonal, immanent God, deeply admired by Einstein. But what if I told you that 200 years after Spinoza, a German philosopher looked at this same God, at the God of Christianity, at all the gods of philosophy and religion, and declared something that would change the world forever? He said, "This God is dead, and we are the ones who killed him." His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and he was not an ordinary atheist celebrating the end of religion. He was a terrified prophet, announcing the greatest catastrophe in human history. Today, we are going to face one of the most controversial questions in philosophy. What happens when God dies? How do we live in a world without foundation? And most importantly, was Nietzsche right about what would come next? Before we continue, I need to make something very clear. This video is not intended to criticize this or that religion, nor to attack any ideas about God whatsoever. The content presented here does not necessarily reflect the personal opinion of the creator of this channel. This is a philosophy video, a reflective and honest immersion into Nietzsche's thinking about God. My commitment is to a deep understanding of ideas, not to defending or attacking positions. And if you want to understand the greatest minds who have ever thought about God throughout history, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Now, let's get to know the man behind the most explosive philosophical bomb of all time. October 15th, 1844. Friedrich Nietzsche is born in a small village in Germany, son of a Lutheran pastor, grandson of a Lutheran pastor. The irony of history already begins here. The man who would declare the death of God literally grew up inside the house of God. Nietzsche was a prodigy. At 24 years old, even before finishing his doctorate, he was already a professor of classical philology at the University of Basel, the youngest in the history of that institution. A brilliant future ahead, recognition, stability, everything an academic could want. But something in him could not tolerate academic hypocrisy, the superficial life of university salons, the theater of conventions. So he did the unthinkable. He gave it all up. He abandoned his career, his security, his prestige, and moved to the middle of nowhere in the Swiss Alps, Sils Maria, an isolated, silent, cold village. There, completely alone, he would begin to write the ideas that would shake the foundations of Western civilization.
But Nietzsche did not emerge from a vacuum. He was living in a Europe in the midst of an existential crisis. 1859. Charles Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. Suddenly, man was no longer a special creation of God. He was just another animal, the result of millions of years of blind evolution. The scientific revolution was demolishing, brick by brick, the worldview that had sustained Europe for almost 2,000 years. Astronomers showed that Earth was not the center of anything. Geologists proved that the world was billions of years old, not 6,000. Biologists explained life without needing a creator. Faith was being questioned everywhere. In newspapers, in universities, in cafe conversations. God was dying slowly, in silence, while everyone pretended not to notice. Nietzsche was not alone in doubt, but he was the only one brave enough to shout the truth that no one wanted to hear. And what he shouted would echo for the centuries to come. God is dead. That phrase is not what you think. When most people hear those words, they imagine a militant atheist celebrating the end of religion, a rebel raising his fist against the sky, a declaration of victory. But it is nothing like that. It is exactly the opposite. It is a tragic diagnosis, a cry of despair. A warning that something terrible has happened and no one is noticing the consequences. Let me show you what Nietzsche actually wrote. In 1882, in the book The Gay Science, he tells the story of the madman. And pay attention, because every word here matters. You have not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours and ran to the marketplace crying incessantly, "I seek God. I seek God." As there were many there who did not believe in God, he provoked much laughter. Then the madman leaped into their midst and pierced them with his gaze. Where has God gone? I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How were we able to drink up the entire ocean? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the whole horizon? What will we be doing when we unchain the earth from its sun? Where is it moving now? Where are we moving? Away from all suns. Are we not falling continually? Backward, sideways, forward, in all directions? Is there still an above and a below? Are we not wandering as if through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space on our skin? Do we not hear the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him.
Do you see the difference? Nietzsche is not saying that God never existed. He is saying that something that held everything together died. And pay attention. It is not God as an entity that died. It is God as a foundation. As the foundation of absolutely everything. God was the answer to what is right and what is wrong. God, why does something exist instead of nothing? God, what is the purpose of my life? God, why should I be good? God, what happens after death? God was humanity's moral GPS, the compass, the anchor, the ground beneath our feet. Now imagine losing your GPS in the middle of the ocean. At night, with no stars, no reference points at all. You can still row, but toward where? Any direction is just as valid as another, or just as invalid. There is no longer a north. There is no longer a right direction. This is what Nietzsche is describing. And he uses those disturbing images on purpose. We drank the entire ocean. We erased the horizon. We unchained the earth from the sun. Everything that seemed solid, eternal, unquestionable, turned to dust. But here's the question no one asks. Was Nietzsche happy about this? The answer will surprise you. No, he was terrified. Look at what he writes right after that. What did we do when we unchained the earth from its sun? Are we not falling continually? Is there still an above and a below? These are not the words of someone celebrating. They are the words of someone watching a slow-motion disaster and screaming for everyone to wake up. Nietzsche knew. He knew that the death of God would not bring freedom and joy. It would bring chaos, suffering, emptiness, because humanity was not ready. No one was prepared to live without a foundation. And worse, people did not even realize what had happened. They kept living as if nothing had changed, as if there were still right and wrong, good and evil, purpose and meaning. But for Nietzsche, those things had just lost their foundation, and no one was paying attention. So what happens when God dies? Nietzsche was very clear. The above and the below disappear. And I am not talking about physical directions. I am talking about moral directions. Above is where you should go. It is the good, the right, the virtuous, what has value. Below is what you should avoid. The evil, the wrong, the vile, the worthless. For 2,000 years, Christianity defined this. Humility is above, pride is below. Chastity is above, lust is below. Obedience is above, rebellion is below. But if God is dead, who decides? Who draws the line? Why would humility be better than pride? Why would chastity be better than pleasure? There is no longer an answer. There is no longer an above and a below. There is only emptiness.
It is like floating in space without gravity. You can move, But there is no up or down. All directions are equally valid, or equally meaningless. Where are we going now? Nietzsche asks. Away from all suns? Are we not falling continually? Backward, sideways, forward, in all directions. Without God, humanity is adrift. Without destination. Without purpose. Without a reason to do anything rather than anything else. And this has a name, nihilism. But pay attention, because this is where most people get it wrong. Nihilism is not simply believing in nothing. Nihilism, for Nietzsche, is the devaluation of life. It is denying the value of real existence in the name of something imaginary. And ironically, Christianity was already a form of nihilism. Why? Because it said, this life does not matter. What matters is eternal life. This world is worth nothing. What matters is heaven. Your body is sin. Your soul is what has value. It devalued real life in order to exalt an imagined life. But now, with the death of God, an even worse nihilism arises. The nihilism of total emptiness. If there is no heaven, if there is no God, if there is no eternal life, then nothing matters. Absolutely nothing. And here there is a fascinating philosophical dialogue. At the same time, the Russian writer Dostoevsky wrote, if God does not exist, everything is permitted. Nietzsche agreed with the diagnosis. Yes, without God, there is no moral foundation. Everything becomes possible. There is no ultimate reason not to steal, not to kill, not to lie. But Nietzsche profoundly disagreed with Dostoevsky's solution, because Dostoevsky used this as an argument to preserve faith, as if to say, we need to believe in God, otherwise chaos will follow. For Nietzsche, this was cowardice. It was lying to oneself. It was living in illusion out of fear of the truth. But wait, if Nietzsche knew that the death of God would be terrible, if he saw nihilism, emptiness, the loss of all meaning, if he himself was terrified by the consequences, why did he declare the death of God? The answer is simple and brutal. Because he had no choice. It was the truth. And for Nietzsche, living in a lie was worse than facing the truth, no matter how painful it was. Better an honest emptiness than the comfort of illusion. But then comes the million-dollar question. If Christianity was wrong, if God is dead, what exactly was Nietzsche criticizing in religion? And why did he think we needed something different? So did Nietzsche want chaos? Everyone doing whatever they want? A moral anarchy where everything is permitted? No, he proposed something much more radical, much more difficult, and much more beautiful. Nietzsche did not want to destroy values. He wanted us to create new values. Values born from life, not from the negation of life. Values that affirm existence, not that diminish it. And for that, he presented 3 ideas that change philosophy forever.
First idea, the Übermensch. In German, it literally means overman or superman. But be careful, it has nothing to do with superpowers. Über is not super in the sense of superiority. It is super in the sense of overcoming. The Übermensch is the one who overcomes himself, who overcomes the old morality, who overcomes nihilism. It is the one who has the courage to live without God and still create meaning. He does not live without values. On the contrary, he creates new values, his own genuine values, born from his will to live. Second idea, Amor, Fati, love of fate. It is not passively accepting what happens. It is not resignation. It is loving life exactly as it is, with everything pain and joy, failure and victory, birth and death. Nietzsche proposed a test. Imagine that a demon appears and says that you will have to live your life exactly the same way, infinitely many times, every moment, every pain, every choice, forever. Would you fall into despair? Or would you say, yes, I want to live this again, eternally? If your answer is yes, you are living well. If it is no, something needs to change. That is the measure, the eternal return. Third idea, active nihilism. Remember that I said Nietzsche feared nihilism. It was passive nihilism that he feared, despair. The nothing matters, so why try? But he proposed active nihilism, destroying dead values in order to create new ones, tearing down the idols that imprison us in order to raise something true. And what fills the place of God? Culture, art, philosophy, music, literature. These become the new sacred scripture, not for us to worship, but to inspire us to create, to live, to overcome. But did Nietzsche himself manage to live this? Turin, Italy. January of 1889. Nietzsche is walking through the streets when he sees a coachman violently beating his horse. The animal refuses to move. The man strikes harder. Nietzsche runs. He embraces the horse's neck and cries out, weeping, "I understand you, I understand you." Then he collapses. That was the last lucid moment of Friedrich Nietzsche. He was 44 years old. When he wakes up, he is no longer the same person. Delusions, silences, screams. He signs letters as Dionysus or the Crucified. His mind has fragmented. The next 11 years he spends in complete silence, cared for by his mother, then by his sister, unable to write, to think, to be. In 1900, Nietzsche dies, without ever having returned.
It is tempting to romanticize it, to say that he went mad because he saw truths that no human being should see, that he stared into the abyss and the abyss devoured him. But the truth is probably simpler and sadder. Extreme isolation. A lifetime carrying heavy ideas with no one to share the weight. And very likely a degenerative genetic disease that also killed his father young. It was not divine punishment. It was not the philosophical price of challenging God. It was human fragility. But that does not make one thing any less true. Some truths are too heavy to carry alone. And Nietzsche carried them alone for too long. The death of God was not ignored. Other philosophers heard Nietzsche's cry and each responded in their own way. 3 paths opened. 3 answers to the void. Søren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher. Technically he came before Nietzsche, but his philosophy is a direct response to the same problem. Kierkegaard agreed, reason cannot prove God. Science does not find God. Logic does not reach God. There is an unbridgeable abyss between the human and the divine. But his solution was radically opposite to Nietzsche's sea. The leap of faith. You close your eyes and jump, embrace the absurd. Believe not despite the lack of proof, but because of it. True faith, for Kierkegaard, only exists in the absence of certainty. Nietzsche would look at this and say, cowardice. Escape. You are clinging to illusion because you do not have the courage to face the void. But for those who cannot bear to live without God, Kierkegaard offers a way out. Make the absurd itself the reason to believe. Jean-Paul Sartre, French philosopher of the 20th century. He read Nietzsche and agreed completely. God is dead? Great. Now we are free. Existence precedes essence, wrote Sartre. First you exist. Only afterward do you define yourself. There is no predetermined human nature. There is no purpose given by God. There is no essence. You are radically free to create your own meaning, to invent your own values, to be whatever you want. Sartre agreed with Nietzsche on the death of God. He agreed on the need to create new values. But his philosophy is more optimistic, less tragic. For Sartre, freedom is not so frightening. It is liberating. Nietzsche might have liked it, but perhaps he would have thought Sartre naive. Total freedom is not light. It is the heaviest weight that exists.
Albert Camus, also French, also 20th century, and perhaps the closest to Nietzsche. Camus looked at the world and saw the absurd. We are creatures who seek meaning in a universe that offers no meaning at all. It is like shouting into the void and expecting an answer. But unlike Kierkegaard, Camus rejects the leap of faith. Unlike Sartre, he rejects creating grand meanings. And unlike Nietzsche, he even rejects the Übermensch, his answer. Embrace the absurd. Live fully knowing that it is absurd. Find joy precisely in the eternal restarting without purpose. We must imagine Sisyphus happy, wrote Camus, Sisyphus, condemned to push a stone up a mountain eternally, only to see it roll back down. Total absurdity, but happy. It is the closest to Nietzsche, but without anguish. Camus found lightness where Nietzsche saw weight, and other thinkers also responded. Dostoevsky, whom we already mentioned, he agreed with the diagnosis, but used it as a reason to keep God if God does not exist. Everything is permitted was a warning, not a celebration. Martin Buber, Jewish philosopher of the 20th century. God did not die. God is in eclipse, temporarily hidden, but not extinct. Absence is not death, 3 paths. 3 answers, faith, freedom, or absurdity, which one to choose. 142 years after Nietzsche announced the death of God. Where are we? Secularization has accelerated. In Europe, churches have become museums, bars, even nightclubs. In the United States, Generation Z is the least religious in history. Around the world, surveys show a constant decline in belief in God. And what happened? An epidemic of depression, generalized anxiety at levels never seen before. Young people reporting lack of purpose as their main existential complaint. Suicide among adolescents has skyrocketed. People have everything: technology, comfort, individual freedom, but they report emptiness, lack of meaning. They do not know where to go. The question is inevitable. Are we living exactly in the world Nietzsche predicted?
And how does the contemporary world respond? First, the new atheism. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. They celebrate the death of God. We finally got rid of superstition, they say. For them, religion is the problem, not the solution. The void, it does not exist. Science and reason fill everything. Second, Jordan Peterson. He tries to rescue biblical archetypes without literal religion. Act as if God exists, he says. Use the stories of the Bible as psychological maps, as structures of meaning. You do not need to believe they are literal truth, but you need to believe they are useful truth. Third, nihilistic pop culture. Memes saying nothing matters. Humor based on constant irony. Cynicism as the default posture. What's the point of trying? The generation that laughs at its own emptiness because it does not know what else to do. You may disagree with Nietzsche's solutions. You may find the Übermensch impossible. You may reject Amor, Fati. You may choose Kierkegaard or Sartre or Camus. But one thing is undeniable. Nietzsche identified something real. The void exists. The crisis of meaning is real. The death of God as an absolute foundation happened. And the consequences are there. The question is not whether Nietzsche was right about the diagnosis. The question is, how do we respond? So, what did we learn? God did not die literally. He died as absolute certainty, as the unquestionable foundation of all morality, truth, and purpose. Nietzsche was the unwanted prophet, the one who saw first what everyone preferred to ignore. And his question still echoes. How do we live without a foundation?
3 paths opened. Return to faith, like Kierkegaard. Embrace the absurd through the leap. Create new values, like Nietzsche and Sartre. Become the creator of meaning yourself. Or embrace the absurd without God and without new values. Like Camus, find joy in eternal restarting. And you, what fills the void left by God? Which path do you choose? Or have you found a 4th path that these philosophers did not see? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to know how you respond to the void. If this video made you think, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel because the journey through the greatest thinkers about God is just beginning. And in the next video, we will explore a philosopher who offered a completely different answer to the question of God. Stay tuned. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how.